Yes, good evening, Mandem Chat family. This evening we have Maureen Drummond from Luton Borough Council on the topic of equality or inequality for black men. I hope you enjoy. Maureen,
Okay,
you have the floor. Can you
thank you
tell us
very much.
can you tell us a bit about your background first?
Yeah, so I've worked for Luton Borough Council for 18 years now. I am the Equality and Diversity Advisor. So what I do in the organisation is ensure that the services that we provide to all our residents um, are they're distributed fairly and there's no discrimination that occurs across the town for our residents, but also for our staff within the council as well. So I've got quite a big remit in relation to equality and diversity and inclusion. And
In,
as you're probably aware now, the poverty agenda is one of the areas that's quite big at the moment, and it's making sure that people are able
mm.
to have the same opportunities as everyone else. You want to see me, Desmond? Okay.
Are you,
That would
you
be
sort of
nice because if I pass you on the street, I won't recognize you.
I was just about to say that, but you clocked it.
Okay, just a sec.
Okay, no worries. Can I ask, is that just for the black? Is that just for the black and African and Caribbean community, or is that black and
No,
BAME?
yeah, it's across the board, so it's for everybody.
Right.
Everybody. In particular, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you all is
Hi.
Right.
is actually because we within the remit that I work in, we have lots of conversations with people, but don't generally get to talk to black men. So lots of black women, but not black
Right.
men. And so I'd like to get your views, hear your voices, hear your opinions.
Mm.
So women are constantly fighting for equality, as you know, because it seems that men have always had equality, men have always had fair treatment. However, what I want to know is from your perspective, from a black man's perspective, what that picture really is like.
Mm.
What's the reality for you as black men? So that's the start of this conversation.
Funny that fits onto what we was talking about earlier, then, doesn't
Yes, yes, it does. Yes.
it? Mm. Okay. So, brother Desmond,
Oh, you put me in the hot seat.
yeah, she was already firing, you're the fire
Yeah,
side.
well, I just to pick, yes, Sister Maureen, enough respect and all that. And I might be a little bit challenging, but no worry, my back worse than my bite.
I'm up for a challenge. That's good.
Right. Now, you say about men have always had equality. See, that needs to be clarified. That needs to be a health warning on that.
Yeah,
Because white men have always had equality because they are the standard by which others are judged.
that's right.
True.
So black men have never had equality because the whole idea of racism was to terrorize and commit violence against black men.
Mm-hmm.
Not just black men, but black women as well.
Yeah.
But the gender issue is somewhat ameliorated, as one American writer did say, the black woman has always had access to the white man's kitchen and the white man's bed, when the black man was always in the field, unless him pretty in terms of a light
Stud.
skin.
He's a
It
stud,
could be
man.
a stable and or massa special boy.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you have to recognize the story.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
black men has never we still the feelings. We kept in the field. And this is where when people talk about equality, my question is whose quality are we talking about?
So we're talking about it from a black man's perspective.
Yeah,
So you
but we've
already
never
said,
had it, so we can't talk about it.
okay, so you feel so at at no point in time, even to today's date, is there any kind of sense of equality for black men?
Well, if you think of it in the sense of we are the standard by which others are judged. That's what equality basically means.
Mm-hmm.
You have a standard by which you judge others. Our standards has never been accepted as even legitimate.
Mm.
So we cannot talk about equality. We can talk about oppression. We can talk about inequality, denial of access, being terrorized. But when it comes to this thing about standard, our standard has never been accepted, so we can't talk about it. We don't know what that looks like.
So you don't believe that anything's changed over the years? I know it, you know, there was equal rights for men before I was born and before any of you were born, I imagine. But now, what about today's situation? Do you think there's any changes, any slight shift in the way things are currently?
Well, I don't want to take up too much, but change is a
Well, this is for
natural.
everyone. This is for everyone.
Yeah.
Mm.
Change is a natural phenomena. I mean, whether you like it or not, change take place. It's the nature of the universe that things change. Now, whether they improve or decline, that's another question. You could say, compared to when we're talking about the people that came from the Caribbean in the 50s and 60s, they secured their housing on a much larger scale than we're doing today.
Yeah.
So economically, you could say we have our position relatively has declined, particularly in comparison to Asian men.
Yeah.
Because when Asian men come here, they couldn't even speak English. And they were treated quite badly at first.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the cultural resource where they could use their language, their religion to build some resilience. Where we didn't have it, that because the church that we had was not interested in this world. But I'll rest there. I'll let somebody else get
Yeah,
it.
I think you're right there, Desmond. To a certain degree, the social climate has changed. So also as the economical climate has changed. Whether it's changed for the good or the bad, depending on your situation. On as a group, as a people, it's finding the balance, isn't it? I would say we need to find the balance.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, we're doing things. We are out there getting on with stuff. We're on the TV a lot, including adverts. You know, we're getting on with stuff that our people, our millionaires and billionaires, things are on the rise, but at the same time, a lot of the same old struggle is still there to be had, especially in the streets, especially against the young.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anybody else want to drop in on that? Sydney? You there, brother?
Yeah, sorry, I've literally just dropped in. I haven't heard anything else. Sorry, I was late bringing the kids back from activities after school clubs and all.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worries. You missed the question.
I'll have a question for you in a bit. Let me just get my feet in.
Okay, no worries. Patrick, you have something to say on the subject? Ricky? Okay. Well, pleading the fifth.
Cup of tea.
Yeah, we're having a cup of tea. Just got in from work and all that. Seafood.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for coming in. I think we might be related with the Drummond, but we have to check our ancestry and heritage and things.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Drummonds in my family, as a lot of Jamaicans do, because it's Scotland land up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've got my pin and everything. Have you got a pin? Have you got a Drummond pin?
Yeah, I have.
Cool.
And McCartan. And McCartan.
What?
Excellent. We've got our tartan too. It's all good. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, but when we talk about equal opportunities, we fought to get them, then we fought to implement them. That's 2 decades, 3 decades, still going on. So if we had equal opportunities at the start of coming in the 60s, Windrush time, when my parents got here, and we had equal opportunities then, we'd be all millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like we're just fighting to get a platform, because we know as soon as we got the equal chance that you have, because we've always had to do 3 times better to get anything. We're bound to excel anything that you say is the ceiling.
Yeah.
So as far as opportunities arise, I think we've gone to this point that we've exhausted pushing so much that we've had to create our own opportunities.
Yeah.
And we're now just saying, look, stop all the fighting with try to educate our children that there's a better way, so we can make our own opportunities and keep it within our own circle. We've seen everyone else become much more affluent because they've kept themselves to themselves. The Asian community, the Chinese community, even the African community. So it's like we have failed because we're always fighting our past and how it's made us feel mentally. So we've always had to get over that curse before we could even see a friend in a fellow Caribbean, put it that way, because that's what we are basically. So the fight continues. We have to find our own opportunities.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that about the fight, because then, okay, so I think the majority of people on this call are of a particular age where we probably remember certain things. When you were talking earlier on about the Windrush, the impact of Windrush, and then as a young person, the impact of the SUS law and various things, stop and search is what's current. But for us, we've had that level of experience. What about the young people or the young men now? So, are the young men, like you mentioned, the Asians are doing their thing and the Chinese, and they all tend to stick together. So as young Black men, do you think that they are joining forces to succeed in life?
I think they are. Okay. Yeah, sorry, Sifu. I think they are to a certain degree. I mean, you've got the ones that are uniting on the street. They're doing their thing. They're uniting in one way, be it negative or not. They're uniting. Then you have some that are out there same way at uni, or do you know what I mean, looking to, like you said earlier, build up a business in it from scratch, from start. And there's a few of them uniting there. So I don't know. That's a good question. Sorry, Blaps, go ahead.
Yeah, in answer to that, I would say not in the same way that we would see unity, because they've grown up, and because we have had to fight, they now are on a plateau of pretty good equality. So they grew up with a diverse people around them. So they're saying, oh, I'd work with a white person or an Asian person. It's no problem to me. But our generation would say, nah, you know what I mean? Stick to your own people. You know what I mean? But we had to fight to get here to make it easy for you. Like my mum and dad used to have to walk to go and get water. And then we got here, and then they turned the tap. And then now we can now buy bottles of water as children. Their children can now buy bottles of water. And now this generation own the water company. So you see what I'm saying? It's like we've made it easier for them, but they haven't seen the struggle before.
No,
they haven't had to go through that struggle. They got it easy.
We done the fight, innit? The fighting that had to be done was done, isn't it? The bloodshed that had to be shed, was shed.
So their equality is not going to see it. So their equality is going to be with anyone there, because they're used to growing up in diversity. When we go back to our parents, they only saw the only people look like them at the school. And then my parents come here, and then they try to go to the same churches, Baptist church or whatever, that they had back home. And they'll say, no, this is not your church. This is the white people's church, Baptist church. You need to find your own one. And now today, our children have grown up and become pastors in the church. You see what I'm saying? At the churches that we had to make for ourselves. And now the children now don't go to church. They don't know all the struggles that we had to get that church.
So there's been an improvement then. There's
been an improvement in a way, but the unity, I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah. Do you think that they need to know about the struggles? Do you think that would make a difference to them in relation to progression?
I would say our job as second generation, are we second? Third? Generation X, I suppose. is to make sure that they understand who the enemy is.
Right.
Right. So we're not just, they can unify with whomever is against the same enemy. Unification should come from educating on who is trying to oppress them because they're black, Asian, white, poor.
Yeah. So there should be a warning on the bottle then.
Yeah, we're all poor. So let's all recognize we're all poor and then fight against the rich people who are trying to say, who've got a plate full of cookies, telling the person with one cookie, that black person over there is trying to get your cookie.
Look, I hear what you're saying, because it's not just so much a racial thing as well. It's a class thing right now, isn't it? Really?
Exactly.
That's what it's come down to, whether we like it or not. In the hood, or what you'd call the estates and so forth, there's black, white, Indian, do you know what I mean? And maybe Chinese as well, Chinese or whatever, and they're all on the same level. They walk the same, they talk the same, they're doing the same, do you know what I mean? And the system that seems to be is against that whole group, not just, do you know what I mean? Yeah, they're against the black to a certain degree, of course, but that whole group, that poor class.
Yeah.
But within
that, just input on that, yeah.
Go on, Ninja.
Yeah, the young people experiencing what we experience. I don't really think that really matters too much today, because it's about going forward. And at the same time, when you look at opportunities, you'll have to say, are we getting opportunity to improve? And I don't really think so. For instance, just use the police as an example. Yeah. I mean, in the 70s, we was always getting stopped. In the 80s, we're getting stopped. 90s, we're getting stopped. And then now, in 2000, we're getting stopped even more than before. So the question is, if the police ain't going to ease off, what are we really going to be doing? So it's a system, innit? The system decide that's what they're going to do. So really and truly, it's just oppressing our young people. Our young people, to be honest, a lot of them got good education. But at the end of the day, again, the system, opportunity. Yeah, when it come to us, it seemed like cards are stacked against us. In many ways, because equality, the word exists, but what does it really mean on the ground? Does it mean changes? No, we don't see any changes. In fact, we see things stripping away, to be frank. 2023, everything that we built is now disappeared like in the 70s. So we got a restart. And that's a massive problem. There's more numbers, but there's less things. And I believe the authority is not really helping us. Because if they were, we would see evidence of that. And there ain't any. Individual is doing good, but we are still struggling just to get it together.
As a community.
So again, yeah, equalities. I don't want to hear about equalities. I just want to see action that make changes, because that's the only thing that counts. That's the only thing that's relevant. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, equality is about making sure that people are treated fairly. So if we want to ensure that everyone's treated fairly, then you can't. We have equality. It's there. It's in all of us. We eat, sleep, breathe it. We just don't actually think about it on a day-to-day basis. So to say that you don't want to hear about it, I get the reason why you're saying that, but unfortunately we can't move past it because it is there. It's just, it's embedded within all of us, whether you like it or not. But the fact is that what I'm trying to fight to clarify here is, I know that from my perspective, my parents didn't talk. They're kind of the Windrush, not the Windrush on the ship, but the Windrush generation. But they didn't talk about the impact of life when they came here. And I know a lot of Black people, men and women, did not talk about it. I've interviewed a lot of Black people who didn't talk about the impact of that. And it's a bit like those people who are in the war. They come back and they don't want to talk about it for whatever reason. So it's just, the question was actually, would it matter to the young people? The young people now, there are lots of them who are successful, as you've already said. So knowing the history, does that make a difference to them, or do they just get on with life and say, well, that happened, but it's not going to prevent me from moving forward. I will still move forward regardless. And Blaps, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Blaps.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to address the police officer remark from Ricky.
Okay.
The police are not here for us. They're not here for anyone that is free and moving easily. They're here to police the runaway slaves.
Exactly.
So they are the overseers. They're the people sent out to gather back the rebellious slaves. So when they see a black person out there walking freely, they check their papers to see why they're out walking freely. So that's where you get the driving license come from, where they check you and say, where are you coming from? Why are you out? And it's like, oh, this is Mass's car. He allows me to go out and buy crops and buy things and swap cotton and bring back clothing from the market. Okay, go ahead, but your papers are in order, blah, blah, blah. And now we've got the driving license. It's the same thing. So when they stopping people, they call it lynching. In England, they call it comes from America, where it comes from Willie Lynch laws, how to control your slaves, how to make sure that you stop these people growing, thriving, from thinking that they can become something in their life. You do lynching. And that it's not coming from the actual, that's just part of the control method. So we have to now change the attitude of the police. The police are now oppressing anyone that could possibly pose rebellion, which is poor people. We're the oppressed, we're the angriest, we're going to oppress. So if they, stop them from gathering in groups, stop them from protesting, stop them. It's now illegal to protest. You have to, you see what I'm saying? You can't shout very loudly anymore. You see what I'm saying? Totally, 10 years from now, I always see it on the TV and think to myself, this too shall pass, you know, what onto what? And I'm seeing that all this little oppression on rebellion is going to lead to us being completely silent and just taking it right up the ritter. It's just the way it's going. And so we need to, at this point, change the laws which determine what the police can do to us just for walking the street. You see what I'm saying? So if we change those laws, because we always grew up, the police and the judicial is all against us. So we don't want to be part of that. We don't want to go within and change it from within. They're the enemy. So why should we become them? Do you see what I mean?
Could I just jump in there, Blaps? Yeah. What about us trying to change ourselves?
Yeah, that's not. I've got no problem with that.
What we're doing, we want everybody else to change, but sticking to the police. At the end of the day, if you look on
I'm saying change the laws that govern the police. They're officiating the law.
Yes,
they're people officiating law in Caucasian empires.
Yes.
POLICE. People officiating law in Caucasian empires. So they only go by what they can do.
Yeah, true.
If but we've said, we'll make it law that you can search any black person or poor person or oppressive looking person.
They're just working. They're working off of what they hear in the media and all that stereotyping. But
that's okay. But like, it's got to be legal, isn't it?
They're also, but they're also going by statistics. And if you look at the behavior of our young black men in the streets, then it's kind of giving them a reason, isn't it? So again, we want them to change the laws, you know, and so the police can't treat us a certain way. But if we never act a certain way, carry ourselves a certain way, indulge in the negatives and do the stuff we do, then there'd be no jobs for the police. So how about us taking some responsibility for ourselves? We know what is the problem. We know what's happened to us. So what about us sitting down and developing a structure for ourselves, for our own communities that is going to benefit us, using our skills and our expertise, you know, we work for the institutions, we work for the corporations, we work for all of these people. But how about some of these professionals and skilled people coming together and building a structure that is going to benefit our own community, and stop waiting for people to change and that to stop from them and them to start? You understand? we can demand and respect ourselves, you know, and that's going to be in how we carry and conduct ourselves.
Yeah, but I didn't say that we should stop doing all that. I don't say that we should stop trying to be better today than we are tomorrow. My personal motto for my martial arts, which I teach, you know, I'm a full-time martial artist. The motto for my school is striving to be better today than we were yesterday. There's no standing still. There's always improvement, and that is the martial artist way. So if you're not going to just stay as you are and say that you're a master and there's nothing else to learn, you have to keep going out there and making yourself better. And anyone that you come in contact with must be made better for meeting you. So it's not a point that we just say, okay, we're just going to keep getting better, and then the police can still do what they do.
Yeah, but
that we should change the laws that govern them as well as improve. I didn't even mention anything about arm improvement. That's a given. We're supposed to be doing that. You know what I'm saying? If you're a grown person not teaching children to improve themselves, then you need to come out of the way, get out of the way.
I think you have to be careful when you watch certain so-called statistics. Scientific, I just get this because of propaganda, you know? You have to be careful of the propaganda. But it suits their agenda.
Yeah, can I just have a little notion on that, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Since we're talking about equalities, yeah? Now, equality, how does it work? What does it do? For instance, it's hard for a community to get equalities when the service provider say they can't find you. Yeah? Simple. They don't know where to find us. So that means there's no equality. You can't get equality then, is it?
So why can't they find you?
Well, that's it. That is a classic word that's being used for the last 20 years. They can't find us, although the number has gone up. So because they can't find us, we all seem to miss out on a lot of things.
Well, there's obviously a reason why they can't find you, and that is about this lack of trust in the monitoring process. So when we ask you to provide details for monitoring steps, we can make change. Most people don't trust that process, which I totally understand. And so they don't fill in the information. So then we don't get a true picture of who is where, you know, even the census data. I've been part of that canvassing for census and knocking on doors, and people don't want to fill in the form. They don't want to provide the information because they don't trust or they're scared of something happening. So, you know, there has to come a point, and I think based on what Marvin has said about change, there has to come a point where we have to kind of, if it may be about challenging a system that says, if we challenge it this way, we can make the change. So challenge a system by saying, okay, let's fill in this form once and see what happens. Is that going to make the change? But we can't sit back and say, nobody can find us when you're not allowing them to find you, because that's why they make reference to community groups that are hard to reach. And nobody's hard to reach. We, as people who work for local authorities, we have to find you. But if you're hiding, then it's very difficult for us to find you.
We're below the radar.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not about. Let me just come back in on that. It's not about that, because recently I was at work and one of my colleague was going to do a piece of work. It's a professional person. And she said she don't know where to find the Black community. And that was only about 6 weeks ago. Listen, I came in the scene, I think 98, 99, and that word's been around from then. They can't find us, and it still is. Why is that? Why is the service provider saying they can't find us? Forget about the censor. Where is the community?
Well, there is no community.
There is.
Where is it?
They're hiding.
Well, if they're hiding, there's no community, man. We need to be out and seen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we need to be out and seen. Go on, Maureen.
Actually, going back to your point about stop and search, has any of you ever been on the stop and search panel?
Well, no, not the stop and search panel, but you know, I've been on Montel Newfield's scrutiny panel.
Yes,
and I left
it.
yeah, the Bedfordshire Scrutiny Panel, and I left it, and I've just rejoined it in it, the Triforce Scrutiny Panel now in it for Cambridgeshire, Hertfordshire, and Bedfordshire. Yeah. So I'm just going through a lot certain paperwork that he sent me via email to kind of get up to date with certain laws and procedures and whatever of the police force, and then we go from there, innit?
Yeah. Because again,
these are the things.
I've been on that panel too, and they just seem to get together a lot and write a lot of clipboards out, a lot of white paper getting written.
Exercise.
They get our ideas. We've met at Town Hall, we've met at Toco Centre, we've met at Marsh Farm Futures, and every single time there's groups of people around the table. We write a lot of ideas on, and we all take pictures of it, and you know what I mean, give our emails out, and then nothing gets done.
But don't you think that when it comes to stuff like that, you have to be involved to even try and make a change, isn't it? Staying on the outside is not really going to make things change. We want things to change, but we're not trusting enough. And even if somebody does step in that position to change, whether it be political or the police, or you know what I mean, we don't trust them once they've stepped in that position. Whereas other cultures will finance them and they will encourage them and support them in that position. Whereas our culture now is, boy, I'm gonna sell out, you know, and you know, he's this and he's that, or she's this and she's that. And
who's supporting the police? It's the people that own business, because they know that the police are there to protect their business.
That's right. But that's what I'm talking about.
They're the ones financing them. We ain't got no finance to be giving the police to get them into our interests. We need to rely on the MP, and the MP is always going to back up the police. So
we need to be in those positions, though. But
is there enough of us? Is there enough of us in those positions to have any power and say? This is the thing. Is how many of us is on the education board? But we moan about, you know, the curriculum. We moan about how our kids are dealt with in the school. But how many of us is on the education board? This is what I'm saying. We're waiting for changes to be made by others. Yeah, and I agree with all of that. Laws need to be changed, you know, so we can't be abused and violated. I understand that. But again, we're giving them a job, isn't it? Because we're out in the streets getting up to a little bit of madness. You understand me? So we're giving them a job. So we need to set up a structure for ourselves that is going to benefit our people and can also address the issues that we face out there, whether it's mental issues, whatever type of issues, family problems. We've got to recognize we've got to do this for ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got to stop waiting, stop with our hand out, waiting, hoping. It's 2023. We're going to wait until 2025, or we're going to start structuring something, organizing something, supporting each other, protecting each other. You understand? It's the only way.
Yeah. Andrew,
I see you have your hand up there for a while. Sorry, bro.
That's all right, guys. Apologies again for joining a bit late, but just based on what you're kind of speaking about there, I'm almost kind of echoing what's been said, Spencer. I totally agree with what you're saying. You know, we have to kind of realize that the system, as frustrating as it is the system, and you know, the only way that we are going to get around it is by, for want of a better term, playing the game. It's the only way. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So we have to accept that if we want to progress, then we have to do what the steps are to progress. You know, if it's about kind of, you know, we can't stand outside, as we can't stand outside buildings and shout. If you want to make a change, then it's about kind of, you know, writing policies and getting those things in place. So we have to, you know, accept that that's the only way that we're going to make those changes. In regards to when those changes will come, you know, to run a marathon, you have to take one step. Do you know what I mean? You can't run a marathon without taking that first step. You know, so again, as frustrating as it might be, it's going to be a long road, but that's where we are, and we just have to, you know, bed down and start doing what we need to do to make these changes. As frustrating as it might be, that's just the way it is, and we have to kind of accept that and back those people that are in those positions. You know, to kind of start making those changes.
That's what other cultures do. Asians do it. They back their person.
Exactly.
Financially, you know what I mean? The Jewish do it. Do you know what I mean?
You know, all those cultures.
One
Exactly.
Realize.
And if you look, sorry, Marvin, and if you look back to all of those cultures that you just mentioned there, Spencer, their history, you know, to where they are today, goes back, you know, hundreds of years. Do you know what I mean? So you know, they started, you know. So if we're talking about making a change now, it might not be me, it might not be anyone in this forum, but I've got a young daughter, 4 years old. She might be the one that will kind of see those changes. But we have to be patient and put those procedures in place for her, so that when she's ready to kind of step up and make those changes, all of those things are in place. It's not a case of her just kind of standing outside the building and shouting. She has those policies that she can draw down, and she has those people of position behind her that she can make those changes in the way that the system dictates to. That's just the way it is. You know, but we have to kind of back those people and learn how to write those. As I said, learn how to play the game. You know, if we want to make a change, by all means. But at the moment, we have to kind of play that game and you know, to make those changes.
Yeah, Maureen, before you say what you're going to say, I see you got your hands up.
No, I'm clapping.
Okay.
Right, you're the Equality and Diversity Officer. Is that within housing or
across the whole council?
Across the council.
Yes.
Okay, so that deals with housing and everything, is it?
Everything.
Okay, so in the housing side of it, do you see we get equality, meaning the areas that we're placed, the standards of accommodation that we receive as the Black community? Do you see that is fair, or we're getting the lower end of the accommodation?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I look at, say, if I look at Luton and the placement of the Black community in Luton, they're not all, I believe, and this is probably before my time, historically, people used to be placed in particular areas. So even if they were buying property, they would be told, go and buy property over in that area. It's called something. I know there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. But what I see now is that there's a wider spread. That doesn't mean that, so if we're talking about social housing, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that that people are getting the best type of social housing, because we haven't got the best facilities across Luton. Some areas are better than others, but you know, we can't say that we've got the best social housing, and in fact we've got less social housing now, or less housing at all, hence why there's so many places being built up in every, if you've got a little driveway, they're going to build a house on it. But in relation to fairness for Black people across the town, I can't, if I think about the stats that have been released, I don't think that it's that people are being allocated housing unfairly. That's not what the picture is showing. But somebody mentioned stats earlier on, and what we need to be mindful of is that we shouldn't just focus on stats. We should also look at anecdotal evidence. So say in this forum, if everybody here is Black, there's quite, you know, there's sufficient people here to say all of us have an issue with housing. We should listen to anecdotal evidence supported by stats. If we all lived in one area, we could say, well, all of us are having a particular issue in this area and we all live there, and then it's supported by stats. It shouldn't just be the stats say that actually everybody who lives in this area is fine, because that doesn't tell a true story. So I always think that you have to have both areas to balance information out. But in relation to what I'm seeing, I couldn't hand on heart say that housing allocation for Black people is unfair. I do know that we are looking at local housing for local people, because you're probably all aware of the influx of people coming from London and various other locations, or refugees, asylum seekers are sent to Luton, continuously sent to Luton, and there's some of the other areas as well. That has an impact on local housing. So there is a view and something that's being looked at the moment in relation to local housing for local people. So it's everybody has a fair chance.
Okay. So Sorry, one more.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right, in regards to our community now not having a social hub, yeah. Do you think that we're being treated unfair in that, or is that our fault because we haven't gotten ourselves together and presented ourselves in the right way as an organization? Why we have no social hub, or is that the council that's failing us by funding that, providing our community with that?
In relation to social hubs, and I guess you're talking about community centres and clubs, there are community centres across the town that are for everybody. So they're not for one community. There are private places that have been bought by particular communities, and even some of those private places should make themselves accessible for everyone. But there isn't anywhere that we can't all access. We probably don't even know about all the actual centres that are around that we can access. But I guess you're probably making reference back to when we had centres like Starlight and Youth House, which I have a view, and this probably telling you my age, but when I'm from London originally, and in London there used to be like your little local kind of hut, like a Scouts hut type place. It wasn't done up or anything like that, where young black people would go, but it would keep them off the street. They'd play their sound systems, play their music or whatever, play the games, but it kept the trouble off the streets.
Yeah.
I think when I moved to Luton, that's what we had as Youth House and Starlight. And then those places, I mean, they went into disrepair, and so those places were taken away. We do need somewhere like that again. I think that to put somewhere like that back in place would make a difference.
Definitely.
Toco doesn't work.
No.
That's my view. Toco doesn't work. I don't know. They said they consulted with young people. I don't know which young people, because that is not the kind of place that young people really want to go to, not from my perspective anyway. So I don't think that anyone is preventing us from getting a social place, but the fact is that we don't have one, and you kind of have to think out of the scope or out of the remit of the local authority to say, why actually do we not have somewhere? You think about in Bedford, I can't remember the place that it's a nightclub. Well, I think it was a community centre, and then the community bought it, and the black community bought it, and so they used to run sessions. What's it? Any of you from Bedford?
Is it West?
The West
Indian Club.
Where the big car park? The car park is on the end of it, and
the West.
Right on the bend.
Yeah.
That's Club West now, isn't it? But there was West Indian.
No, that's not it. Yeah, the West Indian Club. Well, they all club. That was a community centre. They all clubbed together and they bought that. And my view is that if any of our community centres in Luton came up, we should be able to do that. We should be able to club together and buy somewhere if we want somewhere like that for our community. Raynham Way Community Centre, Bushmead Community Centre, they clubbed together and they bought it.
Yeah, Warwicker. Am I wrong there, Warwicker?
Yeah. No, it's not the West Indian Club. That's always been there from the 60s. They've got one called Sixes.
Sixes. That's it.
Yeah, what used to be a nightclub. It used to be a nightclub called the Pad. They got together. They bought it.
Yeah.
And I was in there yesterday. We ran a Windrush event in there yesterday, and they're doing good things in there. Lots of old school domino trips, seaside trips, parties, everything. They're booked out every week. Yeah, and as you said, Maureen, they it's open to everyone. They have a lot of drum and bass nights in there, and,
Yeah, they have different events going on. They generate income. They generate income for that, and that's something that we should if we want to do something and make a change for us.
That is the business model, actually, what people should really look at.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, Desmond, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There's a few little points really, because I was thinking while everyone was talking, and we have to learn from each other. And the question that came to my mind was, how do other communities access opportunities? And I don't see the Jews fighting for equality, and I don't see the Asian fighting for equality. What they do, they create their own. Now, my dentist is an Asian firm. My doctor is an Asian surgery. See, they invested in education. The Jews are the same thing. They made sure that they invest in education for their children so that their children are able to become sort of a professional so they can do things together. Now, if many of us here presently get together, we'll probably be limited in what we could do because apart from some sort of clerical skill and so forth, we haven't got the medical or the engineering skill that is needed. Our young people don't look at the community and say, well, what is the need of the community? Because ever since the 70s, we've sort of started on a sort of integrationist approach. And the system will always allow a few individuals to do well within it, but the majority will always be kept out. And there's this thing called neocolonialism, and sometimes I wonder if that's what's operating in Britain, because when I came in the 60s, there were no Black people working in local authority because Churchill actually said he didn't want any Black people in the local government. And over time, the Equality Act or the Race Discrimination Act came in, and then the Race Relation Act, and that put a few little Black faces in these institutions. But by the time they got into these institutions, they've gone through a process of what I think Marx called embourgeoisement, where they become like the system. And they are also cut off from their sort of cultural roots because not all Black people have the same culture. And wherein you might get Muslim of the same culture or Pakistani of the same culture, Bangladeshi, and they can cooperate with each other. Most African Caribbean and Caribbean people, we don't really see eye to eye with a lot of Africans. And so there's that division. And so although we're Black, we're not necessarily in the same community. So that is a bit of a weakness as well. And we don't have the economic resource, or people are not willing to risk their finance to come together and invest in projects that would help the community. Because when you look at a few shops, many of these West Indian shop or African Caribbean shop, they're struggling because the high cost of Caribbean food and all this sort of thing. And when you look at the Asians, for example, they control the taxi business. They control a lot of institutions, just like the Jews. We don't get into them. So when you talk about changing the law, we can't change the law because we don't have the political clout and we don't have the financial clout like the Jews. They wanted to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn, and they did because they have the economic clout. They control a lot of media interests. Don't have that.
I mean, you're right about the agenda of not employing African or Caribbean in certain positions.
Yeah.
Back then, when they was like, if they come, they want to find out what skill set you had, and was then made aware, even if it weren't the grassroots, the ones above them were knowing that, yeah, you take down what their skill set is, but make sure they do not get the job for so-and-so will go for this job or that job's not available. And then,
yeah, personally,
that was an actual fact.
Yeah, in my personal experiences, I've had to refer Bedford Borough Council and County Council to the Employment Tribunal about 17 times because I refused to play their stupid game. And I've been in a situation where a white person didn't even have the qualification as the necessary, what they call essential, didn't possess the essential qualification, yet they got the job. And I had the essential and desired, and I didn't get it. Now,
yeah, there was an agenda, and there probably still is.
No, because if for example you're a challenging kind of black person, you'll soon find yourself out in the cold. And if you don't play a game, I mean, I remember when I was employed by the Chamber of Commerce, because I wouldn't play their game, I was soon out. And the people who play the game, they're still there, or they probably stay there a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I just find sometimes the system allow a few people in, but if we really want some kind of comparative equality, then we have to create an alternative structure. As someone said, you don't fight to get in to a party that you know you're not welcome in. You go and set up your own party. So you can do your own thing. So then you don't care whether them play rap music or not. You're playing what you want. Yeah? So we have to create our own alternative structure, because they're never going to allow us to make our standard the standard. We will always have to fit in to the European standard. And so we're always trying to be something we're not. Our way of life is not accepted. Our culture is not accepted. So for us to be treated fairly, we have to go through a process where, like caterpillar, we have to change into a butterfly.
Our culture in many cases is accepted, but they just don't want us to benefit from it.
Yeah, that's right.
Andrew, sorry to cut you there, Desmond, but Andrew Morocco, we're running short of time. You got your hands up, then Maureen's got her hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Just going on from what you're saying there, Desmond. You know what the fundamental thing is that what lacks there is patience. That's all it's about. You know, I have been in the council now, and Maureen can testify to this. And you know, whether it be destiny or whatever, I met Maureen quite early into my career within the council, and I know that the work that she has done, you know, a lot of she's had to do on her own, because when it first, you know, when this thing about quality first kind of came into the council, you know, and Maureen, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a team there, and it's only because of the persistence of Maureen that, you know, we still have this, you know, the EDI project kind of going on today, because she had the patience, and that's sometimes what we lack. You know, something will come in, it's shiny and it's new, and we all kind of, and then we just, you know, can't persist with it, you know. And what happens as well is that we sometimes let our memories become too short. You know, guaranteed, if there was another George Floyd incident tomorrow, think about how passionate we all would be. Think about how passionate, you know, and how much we'd all want to kind of, you know, get involved and do something and make changes. But then 3 weeks down the line, we're going back to our normal lives, and we're getting on, you know, we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Forgetting, you know, we can't let those things, you know, just kind of fade away. And you know, that passion, you know, when we've got that passion, utilize it, you know. And it may take a long road, but we have to have that patience to kind of get there, because it's not going to happen overnight. You're absolutely right, Desmond. It's not going to happen overnight. But
I'm 70 now, so I don't know what patient you're talking about. I've been here 56 years, so I don't know what patient you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, but if it hasn't changed, Desmond, so do we just kind of stop? Because, as I said, if something happens tomorrow, that, you know, we're all going to be passionate about it. And we're going to, you know. So
can I come in, please? Can I come in?
Let Patrick speak.
1 minute, Ninja. 1 minute, Ninja, because Maureen did have her hand up.
No, it's all right. Let Patrick speak.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, Desmond raised the issue about how things was tough. What is actually the position about black people in good position in the local authority? Because I remember reading something in the papers or TV recently saying there were hardly any black people in the top position in the authority. So based on that fact, what is actually going on to move that forward?
So we've recently recruited a black person into a directorship post. The issues there are that the senior management structure is set as it is. Those people have been there for a long time. And until a vacancy comes up, And also, until people apply for those vacancies, nothing's going to change. So there's no point in us saying there's no Black people there, excuse me, when Black people aren't applying for the jobs. And I was having this conversation yesterday with someone who said, people are moaning, saying Black people aren't achieving, but actually they're not applying for the job. So that has to change. If we want to see more representation at a level, we have to apply. And not just Black people, it's minority groups. None of them are applying for the jobs. But actually, if I can come back to something Desmond said, in relation, we were talking about a collaborative, Black people coming together to make change, whether it's buying a community centre to make change for ourselves. You made reference to the fact that you didn't think us on the call were the people to do that or would have the resource to do that. And I kind of thought that was a bit unfair to make that judgment, because if we all have the passion is one thing that drives us forward. And as Andrew has said, patience drives us forward as well. And those things are some of the qualities and characteristics that the other communities have, and that sense of togetherness. They fight just like we all do, but when it comes down to business and when it comes down to the need of what they want, they will push forward for it. We have a view that they get and we don't. They actually follow a process. And one of the things we should be doing is benchmarking them. Look at what they're doing. Ask them, how do you get where you are? They're not going to hide it. They'll tell you how they get where they are. Yeah. And then what we ought to do is think about what they're doing and try and do the same. We shouldn't just sit back and become complacent and say, it's never going to change for us. Andrew's right. We've got young families, so we've got to think about the future for them. The focus is always on young people. And one thing I always say is, what about us as the older people? Because without us, those young people aren't going to get anywhere, because we are the driving force behind them. But if we give up, those young people will fail, because we can't continue to drive them. We have to keep pushing ourselves. And so, those are the things that it's a strength in numbers. And yes, we may struggle to get financial support or resources together, but it doesn't mean that we should stop. I would love it if they said they were going to sell off one of the community centres and we all said, let's come together and buy it. And as Marcus said, the model in Bedford is an excellent model. If we could do that, I think we'd be on to a winner. That's just one area that we could of business that we could all join forces and make a success in Luton, because there is a need. Everything is taken over by somebody else, but we don't have anything. Yes, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, what I was going to say on a local level, I remember Trinity Road as an example.
Yeah.
The community did try to purchase that building.
Yes.
And it wasn't very nice to how things turned out. Yeah. And that's on a local level. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So when we talk about equalities, there was no equality running then in that process.
So it was a fair process to purchase that property. I can tell you now that it's a bit like buying a house. You see a house for 250 grand. Why would you put in a bid of 10 grand? Do you think you'd be successful?
Obviously not.
Right. So I know that's what happened.
But
unfortunate.
At the same time,
you have to play the game.
Yeah, but at the same time, the council do not necessarily have to sell their building to the highest bidder. I know that, you know that.
Yeah.
So again, equality is, if the community is struggling, an opportunity come, why would they be selling a building to group for the highest bid when they don't have to, just to start the community?
But do you think they should sell it to the lowest bidder?
Well, it all depends. Remember, it said you don't have to sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah,
you
but
choose to do it. You choose to do it. You choose to do it.
Would you sell it to the lowest bidder? I mean, at the end of the day, it's about them making money on a building that they didn't want. It's unfortunate that didn't stay within the community. I agree. But, you know, again, it's all about how we approach things, how we do things.
Who's got the building now, Patrick?
I don't even know who owned the building.
It's an Asian
I know.
community.
I think it's Sun Nursery or something like that.
No, it's a learning centre, but it's it's an Asian community that have it.
I knew an OAP that was resident there. I used to go and visit him there, and he got moved to around the back of a next old people's place.
Yeah.
Around by that kind of place, but he got moved out of there because it was purchased by people to make it into something for their community. So they got their community to purchase the building. We didn't do anything.
I'm going to jump in there and even use Marsh House as an example. Yeah, that Glenn and those brothers come together and, you know, built it back up. That place was full of dry rot and all kind of things. Yeah. So how come we never look on that? We're just watching it and just walking past it, but walking past it with no vision. You see, in every way, it's in many cases, it's us to blame. You understand? We've got to recognize the needs. You understand? We've got to have some vision. As Andrew and Maureen said, yeah, we've got to have patience because, you know, it's like we ain't got no stamina. You understand? When it comes to following certain process and, you know, waiting the time and just taking the time, it's like we lose the interest and lose the focus. You understand? But Glenn is another prime example there of what can be done. How come we never do this? You know, we lost 61 Starlight, we lost Youth House. They created Carnival Arts Centre, roof dropping. It's £1 million to fix. It's like they're taking forever to fix it. Who benefits from that? We again. You understand? But why when 61 did close down, we never fight from them to replace back a 61? We never recognize the benefits. I'll get away. The benefits it serves to our community. Youth House, same way. You understand? Why is it taken so long?
Right, IR here says Carnival Arts should be able to serve our cause. What's happening there?
But we don't want a place where people's gonna put down conditions on us and whether we can do or can't do and rare. From we know it benefits our community. We're allowed to express our culture. You understand? We should be able to get our own stuff, so we're in control and have say about our own things.
Yeah.
You understand? True. This is the point.
True.
Yeah. So anyone else got any questions? Because we're not far from wrapping up. It's just after 8 now.
Carnival Arts never served the community in the first place. Maybe this is why they can't fix the roof.
I agree.
That was from IR here.
I've been having some arguments on Facebook with them.
Serious?
A couple of days, yeah, about the sound system thing, innit? Man coming on there telling me about, if you've got a problem, you shouldn't really put it on Facebook. You should email this and email that.
Is it?
I tell you, listen, mate, you know what I mean? You've never respected sound system culture. Don't get it twisted. You never have. You never have. You know what I mean?
Really about that,
they never, even when sounds were running, they never included us in anything, in their official stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like, and now the carnival is just like a fete, innit? It's just like a fete with some costumes. That's what it is, you know? But that's a different subject. We could talk about that another day.
Yeah. All right. Before I bring you in, Andrew, Johnson Oridan says Luton is going to be a marmot town. Will they support the equality when it comes to health?
It's going to be a what?
Marmot. Is that right, Johnson?
What is marmot?
I don't know. That's what I'm looking at. Maybe
marmot town.
Marmot. I can help.
Say, Andrew, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah.
Go ahead, then, Andrew.
Marmot is the name of it's a professor, isn't he? Who and it is about inequality. So Marmot Town is the name of the project in regards to towns that are looking to face up to their health inequalities.
Yeah.
So Luton is under this. So if you look up Marmot, you'll see it's a professor, but it's about kind of health inequalities in certain areas.
Is that what he was about then? He was about health and equality.
Yes, well, yeah, health inequalities and there were snippets of it, for those of you, when we spoke a few weeks ago with my presentation, snippets. So when we talk about kind of areas of deprivation and the like, that's what Marmot kind of looks at, why there are inequalities in certain aspects in certain towns. So
can't see none of them chicken and chip shops closing down, bruv.
Nah, mate.
Well,
they're buying out the police, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, and just when I raised my hand just now, it's about and I remember one afternoon Marvin and I had a really kind of deep kind of conversation and what we kind of spoke about is that when we are speaking about having these centers and resurrecting these centers and these kind of community institutions for us and for our communities, it's what we've got to think about is what is coming out of those community centers, because it's all well and good having these community centers, but what are we doing in that time that we're in there? In those 2 hours, what are we doing? Are we just gonna playing table tennis or dominoes, or are we kind of having sessions about learning about economics and learning about kind of report writing and investing, so that when it does come to a case of that community center might be closing down, we know how to put a bid in to kind of get remortgaged and extend the lease, and that's what we need to be doing when we have these centers as well. It's not just a case of well, we've got a center and a round of applause and pat ourselves on the back. What's the problem about if you give me a fish, I eat tonight. If you give me a fishing rod, I can, I learn how to fish. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we need to do. So when we get these centers, it's not just a case of giving ourselves a round of applause and give ourselves a clap on the back, and then we're not doing. Let's make those institutions kind of work for us.
Well, everything has its place, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, there's time to play and there's time to work, and there's also time to learn.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I mean.
Our thing's been set up in the past, well, from my observation, that it's always time to play in it, because from the youth centres that was there in the past, it was only about, we go in there, go hang out, we can eat our food and play table tennis and pool. But there was no real support, no real education going on, no training courses organized. Do you understand?
True.
And that goes back to and that goes back to what Desmond was saying just now, because if we're talking about the system kind of working against us, then yeah, they're happy for us to kind of do that, Marvin, because we're posing no threat.
That's
you know what I mean? We're posing, right. We're not trying to, we're not getting to touch kind of bring these down. Yeah, we'll go in there and we'll happily just, spend our 2 hours doing that. Then we're posing no threat, and we'll
see why it's so important.
We'll always be where we are. You know what I mean?
You see why it's so important then, Andrew, for us to come together and organize it ourselves, because as you said, they had no problem providing that or having that there for us, because we pose no threat. So supposing now we want them to provide these facilities for us, but yet still we're going to be supporting our community, dealing with education. We're going to be putting on courses. Then in their mind, then we're beginning to pose a threat.
Echoing me.
Yeah, that's not good.
Someone's echoing. Is that you, Lee? I think that might have been Lee,
Yeah, Lee Drummond was on there, yeah.
That's good, because I want to ask him to do his questions.
If we're now educating ourselves, putting on training courses, supporting our community in the various areas, then they can class that as, posing a problem now, a potential problem. So this is where we need to finance these things ourselves. We need to be self-sustainable.
Self-sufficient, innit?
Yeah, I'm not saying if they give us funding, fine, that is good. But, are they gonna Are they gonna fund our upliftment, our development?
Okay, Blaps, you got a question? Yeah, Diana?
Well, it's just reiterating the point that everyone's been making about a facility for us. I had my last place was in town centre. It was on George Street. It was right next to Debenhams in the Yorkshire Bank. CDMA Academy is Community Development for Martial Arts, my group. It's an anti-bullying group. We deal with mediation. We deal with all kinds of self-enlightenment through testing yourself. And we had the corner, the Yorkshire Bank, like I said, it was a huge place. We had both levels on it. We had 6 martial arts being taught there. We also were teaching academic classes, courses. We had all the buskers in Luton going there every Wednesday. We had Black history being taught there. We had economics classes taught there. Photography was being taught there. Yoga, Tai Chi. We had the kids being taught drumming, guitar lessons, piano lessons. I love bragging that my daughter used to go there every week and learn to speak Japanese from there, because we had 29 teachers teaching 75 different subjects, both academic and life skill. And the way we got the building was because there was a loophole in supplying businessmen who had buildings that were doing nothing to get less business rates or percentage cut off their business rates if they allow a community group to use their building. So we were in there for 2 years, and finally we were dangerous enough that Asians came in and bought the lease out.
As always.
There you go. So that's what I'm saying. The support we had from the community was complete, because they used to come in, and we've got a visitors book. We had to keep changing the visitors book because we kept getting filled up with comments. Love this place is amazing, this place is unbelievable, we need to keep this going, blah, blah, blah. Well, all them kind of comments were daily. There was a regular thing. Because we were giving away books, that sealed it for everyone. They were just like, oh, we need to protect this. But one thing we couldn't protect was who owned the building. And as soon as the landlord got a great offer from a business, they threw us out.
That's why we must own and control.
Self-sufficient.
When I get funding next, which I was trying to do in 2019, I was trying to get a building on Dalla Road. It was 36,000 square foot. We're about to get 250 grand of funding to buy it, to get the lease. And within 5 years, we were going to own the building. I had to go through funding because I have no community backing up the thing that we did in 2016. It was awesome. Oh, we got no money for that. We can't support you. 250 grand. Where are you going to get that for? You know, so it's like I had to fight for that all the way with my crew, my people, right? I had to go through the official funding circles to get it, because to afford that, we're not the total percentage of Luton's population. We're like 20% or something like that, 10, 15. So it's not for us to get that kind of money. The Asian are like 50, 60%. So they got mosques, and they could just say, we need 250 grand. And they just have to mention it in a mosque, and in 1 day or 3, they've got 250 grand.
They've got it, yeah.
But they've also got councillors in the town hall supporting that as well, innit?
Yeah, so any planning permissions they need for the building, they get thrown through and everything like that. So we haven't got that kind of clout. Never did, never will have. Right? We've got a couple of people that are pastors that are sat on the board. Even Pastor Denny was on there, and he can't do anything about his church. You see what I'm saying? So he's got a church in Bury Park, surrounded by all these people, and he's not been able to expand or do anything bigger. Pastor Blake has got Kojic, right? Sorry, my bad. Bishop Blake is in that place because he's not talking to anyone in England. He's talking to Italy. He's talking to them, you know what I mean? Where they don't care about anyone else's religion. Theirs is the biggest, so they'll finance that because the diocese Right. They fund that. You see what I'm saying? Because they want the parishioners in that group. Remember?
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks, Blacks. One more. Sorry. One. Yeah, you got a bad connection there. One more question. Oh, Andrew Morrow said, and with things like that, yeah, I'm just gonna mute you. And with things like that, Blacks, we need to be able to just develop the model rather than just the physical structure. If Heathrow told Richard Branson tomorrow that he could no longer fly his Virgin plane out of there, he would just take the model of how he established his airline to Gatwick. That's true still. Lee, you got anything, a question or a view before we wrap up?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, brother.
Yeah, my apologies. I kind of joined very, very, very late, actually. So I missed a lot of what's been said, but I did catch up on a few points been made. Quite clearly from the African Caribbean community, money is the biggest issue. You know, Blaps has just pointed out, you know, he had success in the building that he'd acquired, you know, 75 teaching sessions going on. I mean, that's just incredible to know that that's happening in town. And I could argue that there's a lot of African Caribbean people that didn't even know it was happening. Right. You know, and that's sad to say that there is that kind of, you know, opportunity for us to come together. The building was already there. Blaps has already secured that side of it. And yet the response from the African Caribbean community is, you know, for want of a better word, one of ignorance. And that's not ignorance intentionally, but that's just, unfortunately, the way that some things are at the moment. You know, getting information out to people is very, very difficult at the moment. You know, we all know, most of us who are on here, you know, whether or not you want, you know, somebody to take on martial arts or to do a lesson in you know, language or writing skills or whatever, that information has to go out there to let people know that your community is actually doing something for you in the first place. And at the moment, I have to say, I feel like I'm in some sort of bubble. And I've been here for God knows how many years in Luton. And the level of communication about and information about what is going on is very, very minimal. You hear about things only within the circles that you move in. And if you don't move in within certain circles, you do not hear about what's going on. Right. To get to kind of get motivation from a large group of people, and as much as we may be a small percentage in comparison to the Asian community, or in fact, even now with regards, you know, we've got the Polish community that are building and building, they seem to come into the town before you know it, they've got a shop on that corner, they're doing their own shops. Right. We do tend to monopolize on the same thing over and over again. It's very easy to see Black people coming into Luton and saying, oh yeah, there's another West Indian shop on the corner.
Barber shop, food shop.
Really? Really? Is that the extent of the Black community in town? Is that the extent of our abilities and our skills? And that's why I'm impressed with what Blaps was saying, because what he was providing was way beyond what you normally hear about with regards to the Black community. And that's where we need to go. We need to provide resources and skills so that, you know, we can educate the younger ones coming up and say, you can do this, you can do this. We know whenever there's an award ceremony, certain people in the community don't even get a look in. Why? Why is it that there are certain people who are quite clearly motivating the youngsters, motivating their own community, doing big things? But we have these award ceremonies almost as if it's just a money-making scheme, you know, just for the sake of it. And yet we know that we can nominate particular people who have done some fantastic things, and they should be the forerunners to move things forward, but it doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? I think we're kind of flogging a dead horse. I think we know why it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, within our community, we don't seem to want to work together. Groups like this, you know, unify, we ask the question. You know, in closing, for me, it's more a case of, now that you've had some of the questions asked, now that you've had some of the options posed, where do you want us to move to, knowing that Mandem Chat has discussed it within the group? That would be my next posing question.
That's what we encourage, though. Once the chat has been chat, or spoken, what's the next step? What action? Who's gonna? You understand?
Well, I was gonna ask Maureen and give her the final say to say what is her views on the steps that need to be taken to ensure we get our fair share, we get equality, and is that on the council side and on our side as well? What do you think the steps that need to be made?
Yeah, so yes, it's on both sides, most definitely, but also it's this platform to hear your voices is really important, and I'm sure there are more people that probably join this session on regular basis that aren't here currently. But the more we have this dialogue, we hear the voice of the Black woman quite a lot, but we don't hear the voice of the Black man. And actually, we need to hear the voice of Black people in general. That's how we're going to make change. I think it was Patrick who mentioned about us, people looking or trying to find us. Well, actually, they shouldn't have to try to find us, because we should make ourselves visible. We should put ourselves out there so they can hear us.
We should be kicking down the door.
Sorry?
We should be kicking down those doors.
Yeah, they should hear us, and then from there on we can start making change. We at the council in 2020, after the death of George Floyd in America, we're one of the few local authorities that passed the Black Lives Matter motion. And that motion was driven by community. But actually, I attended a meeting and saw that the drivers were young people in particular. And if we want those young people challenged the local authority in a way that impressed me highly, but actually made me sit there and think, yes, here's the Black voice. This is what we want. We want the challenge, because these young people are going to be the ones that are going to push forward to make the change. As Andrew said, yes, you need patience because it's slow, like everything else in local authority is slow, but they are making inroads. Because that motion has been passed, it can't drop. Every year we have to have an action plan, and we have to review the action plan. We have to be accountable to those young people. They made us, not me personally, but they made the rest of the people in that room feel ashamed of themselves. And they had to go and fix themselves up in relation to what they were doing, what the actions were saying, and how they present. And if those young people continue to drive, we will see that change happening. But it's got to come from both areas, the local authority and us. But if we don't make ourselves visible, they're not going to do anything.
I remember at the protest, there was quite a few, and I mean, not even quite a few, there was quite a lot of youngsters down there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, expressing their opinion.
Yeah. I remember not too long ago, me and Mark went to the Hat Factory. You Are Able did put on they were showcasing a documentary that they put together, interviewing people from the Windrush generation and the youngsters and all of that. And a lot of the youngsters was saying that, without them watching that, they didn't even really know about the Windrush issues. You understand what happened in those times with our people? They didn't know. So of course it's good for us to, create that awareness, to keep that fire blazing within them as well. Otherwise, they're just gonna they're basically just gonna make the same mistakes that we've made, isn't it?
Yeah.
Understand? They're just gonna run into the traps as well, the same traps.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, and Andrew said, and trust me, Maureen is getting tired of my voice. Hold on. There's a message I must have missed. Hold on. Did I miss the one?
No, it's when she said, it's when Maureen said that, enough Black men don't, aren't speaking up. But, since I've been working there, I've been, I'm constantly badgering Maureen. So, yeah, so she's getting, so I need someone else to kind of badger her now. So.
Right. Okay, Maureen said, thank you for inviting me along. I thoroughly enjoyed the chat, and I hope I'll be able to listen and participate in future sessions. Of course, Maureen.
If you'll have me back.
We're on every Wednesday. You're welcome anytime.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, then is that it? We all done? No more questions? It's
Hold on. Let me see this another one.
Can I just leave it on this? I think everybody on this group gonna have to do their bit to try to help to make improvement. It's not a talking thing that we're looking for other people to do things. So it's up to us as well to get involved, know what's going on, see where we can help. Because to be honest, a lot of things does go on and nobody don't seem to know what's actually going on in their town. Yeah, apart from the people them who's at the forefront who's doing their bit. Yeah. So I think that's our responsibility. We keep our ears to the ground and support where we can support.
Definitely.
And share the information.
And share.
True.
Black said info seafood underscore blacks at protonmail.com. CDMA UK. Okay, thank you guys and girls.
Thank you.
Men and women, I should say. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Appreciate your time, Maureen. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Maureen. Much appreciated.
Okay.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay.